Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Locked On Warriors. Before we begin, and I actually already did this twice, but the streaming platform that we normally record on is having major technical issues, so I had to re-record this after the show. So in just a moment, you'll watch what I hope is a really entertaining and fun episode that Kylen Mills and I just produced. But first, last week, during the middle of an episode of Locked On Warriors, I veered off on a tangent regarding media consumption. In hindsight, this platform is not the place to have discussions or express opinions regarding the modern media paradigm. I shouldn't have brought it up in the first place. Doing this podcast every day, I understand what it's like to put your voice out there to an audience. And I have the utmost respect for anyone who's willing to do that and is trying to be great in this business. The worst part about that brief discussion last week is that I implicated my colleagues here at the Locked On Podcast Network, in addition to other podcast networks and other podcasters. I strongly respect my colleagues and friends here at the network and was not thinking of them when I shared my opinion, just given how much I respect them as media professionals. My predecessor was a beat reporter covering the Golden State Warriors. His predecessor is now a writer for The Athletic. I had no idea. And I tremendously respect the hiring practices of the management at Locked On, which focuses so much on bringing in quality individuals. And I'm incredibly proud of being a part of Locked On. Ever since I was recruited a year ago to now, this has been such a tremendous joy for me. And I feel absolutely terrible that any of the podcasters in this network heard my comments as being directed toward them, or if they were lumped in with my comments. I sincerely apologize from the bottom of my heart. I do. I'm so sorry to my Locked On colleagues and to all podcasters trying to thrive in this business. And I hope that someday you forgive me. Moving forward, my focus with this program is just going to be Warriors, strictly the Golden State Warriors. All right. No more discussions on the media or anything like that. I just want to be here to provide the insight and analysis that we've been providing while continuing to bring in a diverse group of individuals as guests to hopefully provide as much perspective and information as possible. Let me just finish up with this. I love the Warriors. Love them since I was 5 years old, back when Sleepy Floyd and Chris Mullin were the backcourt. George Karl was the head coach. I was playing CYO basketball in Fremont, California. I love this team, and I love talking about this team, and I screwed up. I'm really sorry. I insulted people, which I never wanted to do to begin with, but I insulted people who didn't deserve it and who are doing great work. And that's what I want to do. Great work for you. Talk Warriors. Root for the Warriors. And hopefully make being a member of Dub Nation while rooting for the defending world champion Golden State Warriors more fun every day. So let's go. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit matchup to $100. So if you put in 100, they'll match 100 with the promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com. Use the promo code Locked On. You can follow Kylen Mills on Twitter at Kylen Mills. Kylen, great to see you. Welcome back from Scottsdale. If you want to talk about your trip, please do so. I love that town. But equally important, your first impressions of the last two Warriors games. They played the Nuggets on Friday. They lost that game. And then the Kings, which they won, but it was a lot closer than at least I thought it was going to be. You're at the Huts, and hello.
Yes, hello. Just got back from a refreshing trip to Scottsdale, finally rounding out my husband's 30th birthday celebration. So we did a solid 9 days of celebrating. I'm so done. And I'm also really ready for the meat of the NBA season. And that's what we're getting into right now. I also just want to mention really quickly that I appreciate all the other podcasters out there. I know you touched on it at the beginning of the show, Cyrus, but there's so many colleagues out here that cover the Warriors, teams across the NBA that do great work, whether they have a credential, whether they're fans or whatever their backgrounds may be. Appreciate all the work you guys do. And, happy to have so many people who want to be involved in the conversation about the NBA and sports across the board. In regards to, let's talk about last night's game first, Cy, because I thought there were a lot of positives in last night's game. And one of my first takeaways was that Steph Curry still got it. And this is a subject I love to talk about because there's so many people and analysts to start out the season who are projecting his numbers to go down this season. He's not a favorite to be in the MVP conversation, or at least in one of the top three, according to a lot of experts, yet he continues to produce. And that 33-point performance last night proved that once again, going 7 for 12 from behind the 3-point line. I just think it's so funny that a lot of people think that he's going to be on the decline. I think that's the opposite of the case. I think that Steph Curry's game is continuing to evolve. I thought last year he did a lot of things better than he did even just a couple years ago when he was the MVP. And I just think he's getting better on defense. That's another factor that I know Steve Kerr says often is overlooked by folks. So one of the first things I want to point out is that I think Steph Curry still got it. I think the only thing we're going to see decline this season is possibly his minutes and the number of games he's playing. They're going to have to manage his minutes really, really well. But I think the minutes he does play, which I've been saying it since we started really talking about the Warriors this season, is that I think the minutes he plays, he's going to continue to be as good as, if not better than he has been the last couple seasons. Am I wrong for that take or what?
Hell no. No, I 100% agree. In all honesty, that Kings game, it was such a disappointment. And I think this might be a theme of our show in that the second unit could not hold on to that lead. The Warriors scored 89 points in that first half, third most in Warriors history for a half. So, that alone was impressive. They built this huge lead. I believe they led by 19 entering the fourth quarter. But that second unit, they've been having trouble defensively. I found a stat where the starting lineup is plus 43 in the NBA, whereas the rest of the team is minus 29. The rest of the team has to step it up. And obviously there's going to be growing pains with the depth, especially given how young they are. This is where I hate to say this, but Gary Payton II is sorely missed because perimeter defense has been a massive failing so far. You're seeing teams put up a lot of open threes. The Warriors are lucky a lot of those are not going in. But yeah, defensively, they're not quite there yet. So that's my thought on it so far.
So can I say one other positive from last night's game?
Yeah.
Let's start with the positives before getting into some of the problems. And I think you're spot on with obviously the second unit struggled in last night's game. Defense and transition defense. I know you mentioned we're going to get into in just a couple minutes. Another positive I want to point out was Andrew Wiggins' play. And that's something Steve Kerr talked about at practice today. He said that he feels like Andrew Wiggins is playing the best basketball of his career, which is a theme because Steve Kerr also said that last season in the postseason. And now starting off this season, he's looked really good. And I thought last night he was super impressive in just attacking the basket. You love to see him aggressive on offense, getting out in transition, really pounding the glass. And then according to Steve Kerr, he just was making the simple plays. He was in the right place at the right time. And Andrew Wiggins just keeps getting better, which should be really exciting for the Warriors because they now inked him to a deal. He's going to be here a couple more seasons. And, he could still continue to climb and have a high ceiling. So I thought that his performance, 24 points, 5 rebounds. He also added in a couple of steals, blocks. I thought he looked great on defense. And we know he's great on defense and a really strong two-way player. I thought his performance was really encouraging. And I also wanted to throw a question back at you regarding Andrew Wiggins. So I tweeted out a quote today from Steve Kerr about Andrew Wiggins and what he's been doing well. And someone quote tweeted it with an interesting question. He said, I think that this season, Andrew Wiggins is going to have a bigger impact and does right now on the Warriors than Klay Thompson does. Do you guys think that's true? And this person tweeted it back out as a question, and there were some people engaging in some debate. And I want to know what, drop a line if you're listening, let us know what you think, or if you're watching this on YouTube. But what do you think, Cyrus? Do you think Andrew Wiggins has a bigger impact when he plays than Klay Thompson?
So far, yes, just because Clay is God, that's a crazy question to bring up
Isn't it
now.
a good question? I was kind of like, huh.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? Why don't we I'll answer that in just a moment because we have to give some love to some sponsors here. First and foremost, PrizePicks, who I had my first loss of the season. And that was opening night. Nikola Jokic, the over under was 26.5. I picked the over and he finished with 26. So I lost by a half point because the Klay Thompson over. That's why I thought of that. The other because you have to because with PrizePicks, the premise is you pick 2 to 5 players and you bet over unders, right? So Klay Thompson OU was 14 points. That looked really low. I was like, yes,
Yeah.
bet the over. And that came through easy. But Nikola Jokic, because you can't bet on 2 players on the same team. I think that's a rule change too. So it's making things a little trickier because before I just be like Warriors, 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 and just score. So Nikola Jokic came a half point off. But the point is, it's fun. Just go to PrizePicks.com. You can also download the app. Transitions are easy. Pulling out money is easy. It's legal here in California. Download the PrizePicks app or go to PrizePicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. And if you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. And if you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. Now make your second listen, or after we're done, make your second listen game to game NBA. It's every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NBA with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NBA, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow Kylen Mills on Twitter at Kylen Mills. And so So the PrizePicks thing made me think of Klay Thompson because, again, I bet the over on him. But look, Wiggins was the second best player in the NBA Finals. I don't think there's any debate about that.
Yeah.
And he's looked damn good so far to start the season. In that Kings game, he went 10 for 19 from the field. His three-point shooting so far has been solid. He put up the 24 points in addition to the great defense he plays. I just don't think it's fair to compare them yet just because Klay Thompson is not at full strength yet. He did have a so-so game against the Kings, only finished with 8 points in 27 minutes of play. I mean, if you had to ask me right now, yeah, I'd begrudgingly say Wiggins, and I say begrudgingly only because of my loyalty to Klay and what he's done for this organization and my love for him as an individual as a whole. I just think he's a phenomenal dude. But yeah, you'd have to say Wiggins right now. You'd have to. But again, if you ask me in a week from now or 2 weeks from now, maybe my tune will change. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, so I'm actually really on the same page as you. I think, like, looking back at the NBA Finals or even the postseason last year, I think you'd have to say Andrew Wiggins. And I think if you're evaluating the team at this very moment, I have to say Andrew Wiggins. And I want to preface that by making clear that I'm not taking away from anything that Klay Thompson has done, achieved with this organization, the incredible player that he is. And the fact of the matter is that he's still coming off of 2 massive injuries. We saw him sit out for the preseason because, as he's talked about, he's still dealing with a lot of, the aftermath of those injuries. So, I agree with you in that maybe I think fully healthy Klay could possibly overtake Andrew Wiggins. But right now, Andrew Wiggins has taken over those defensive assignments that Klay Thompson used to have against opposing teams' best players. So, like, on the defensive end, I think that Andrew Wiggins is making a bigger impact. I think Klay, it does take some time, especially after an injury, to get back to where you were defensively. Like, he looks like maybe just like a half step behind, or at least last season, I feel like he still just wasn't quite to where he was defensively pre-injury. So I think that Andrew Wiggins has a clear edge there in what he brings in the two-way conversation. And then offensively, when Andrew Wiggins attacks the basket, I mean, he's putting up 20 a game easily. I think when he's aggressive and really does drive. And then the other thing is, I do think that Klay Thompson's shot isn't still 100% back post-injury.
Mhm.
Like, he kind of went on runs and went in spurts last season after coming back from the Achilles injury. And I still think early this season, we've seen a little bit of the same thing where, like, he hasn't looked like he's fully back in that three-point shooting rhythm. I mean, even having him on the floor, though, you know, he helps space the floor and he keeps other teams honest because they know what Klay Thompson's potential is and what he can do. I just don't know if we've 100% seen his potential yet post injury to where, like, he's really firing on all cylinders. Like, I thought we saw moments of it last year, and like even in some of the playoff games where he all of a sudden would get really hot on certain shooting nights, but like the consistency isn't 100% there yet. And like I said, I think defensively last season, what we saw, he still wasn't like quite pre-injury Klay. But that's not to say he doesn't get back there this season. So that's why I agree with you and that I'm going to keep it open-ended looking forward into the season. But I think right now, Andrew Wiggins, super indispensable to this team. And it's fun. I mean, good for Wiggs. Like, he's someone that I cheer for after, you know, he dealt with so much when he was with the Wolves of being, you know, called a bust. And to see him back and battling and to win a ship, you know, signing with the Golden State Warriors, getting the bag, as you would say, although keep in mind he did take a pay cut to stay here. I still think that's really cool and speaks, you know, really highly to the Warriors organization. But anyways, I'm cheering for Wiggs. I'm cheering for Thompson, but I think Andrew Wiggins is, you know, just a little bit more impactful on the floor right now.
Yeah. And I will say this, when you have Wiggins and Klay on the floor together, even though Klay's still getting his conditioning back, which is really affecting his offense more than anything else, and more specifically his shot. As anyone who plays may or may not be aware, I don't know, I at least from my experience, exhaustion, lack of energy, it affects your shot so much. It
affects execution in every sport for sure. Like, that even carries over because I played basketball through high school and even soccer beyond. Like, any sport, like, the less conditioned you are, the more your execution suffers as the game goes on. That's a totally valid point.
But what I haven't seen in terms of a drop off because of his conditioning, and maybe it's because it's just there's much less complexity to it. And look, putting a ball in a small cylinder is just vastly more difficult than, you know, just staying in front of your man. You know, make sure your hands are up, making sure your defensive assignments are followed. So defensively, I feel like he's doing fine. I haven't really seen much of a drop off there. I think he's actually holding his own. So when I see Wiggins and Klay out there together, those are two big bodies. Like, Klay's not a small guy. I mean, he's 6'7", and he's not like a skinny 6'7" either. So I love seeing Wiggins and Klay out there together because they're almost the same height. I think Wiggins is just a smidge taller, you know, but Klay has a little more bulk to him. So together, I love it. Like, when I see those two in the court at the same time, they're doing the job. Even if Klay's not there yet offensively, defensively, I think he's already like kind of close to the pre-injury Klay. We started seeing that in the last few games of the NBA Finals. Steph, by the way, he's had a hot start to this season. Again, like the only downside to last night's game was that they gave up the lead. And as Klena Azubuike was mentioning, like, Steve Kerr did not want to bring Stephen Curry back in the game or Draymond Green. Unfortunately, he had to. But then Steph went on like a gnarly shooting slump, didn't score a single point, I think in the fourth quarter, but they survived. But nonetheless, he's averaging 33.3 points per game so far. He's shooting lights out. He's shooting 44% from three, 47% from the field. So Steph is off to a smoking hot start, like MVP type stuff. So that's a positive, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. My two positive takeaways, but we got to get into the negative too. I know you mentioned that you had some clips to play or that you wanted to discuss defense, transition defense. It certainly looked bad last night. And also, I want to mention the personnel on the bench that you have to factor in. Like, Jonathan Kuminga is a player who we've talked about who struggled defensively just in like some of the basics of like knowing where to go, when to slide, you know, just where to be on the floor. And like, he's looked a little bit lost. And I think that he's clearly still a player who needs to grow in that part of the game. You also have James Wiseman, who doesn't have a lot of experience either. And, you know, is still finding his footing. And then you also have Jordan Poole, who, you know, has been very upfront about the fact that he wants to work on the defensive side of his game and that he can be a liability. I mean, If you've watched the Warriors, you saw some of that last season, especially in the postseason. I think he got exposed a little bit more. And then Moses Moody, I think, has done a good job, and he came in as a rookie and did a good job relatively on defense, but still, like, so many young players and players who still need to progress on that side of the ball.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like there's one player that could bring it all together, and we'll break that down next. First, I got to give some love. We got to give some love to another longtime sponsor of this program, and that's BetOnline. Let me get that overlay. There we go. And if more specifically, betonline.net, they are your number one source for betting football and the start of the new basketball season. You can find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, in-depth analysis on every game. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. I actually want to go to betonline.net and see if the Warriors line for tomorrow against the Suns is out yet. I doubt it, but you never know. What would be your guess, Kylan, on the line tomorrow? The Warriors are on the road playing the Phoenix Suns. What would you guess the line is for that?
What would I guess the line is? Last time I wasn't that far off. I'm still gonna say Warriors. My husband is saying Warriors get 2.
Okay, so the Suns
so
minus 2.
-2, yes.
All right, so let's see. Oh, the line is available. Oh, he came close. It's Suns minus 2.5. Good job,
Okay.
Charlie.
Yeah. All right. Go, Charlie. He considers himself a gambling expert, so I'm sure he'll appreciate the tip of the cap for that.
So far, so very good. And the over-under is 224.5 on that game. And just go to betonline.net to get all your information. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, it is where the game starts.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow Kylen Mills again on Twitter and Instagram at Kylen Mills. The player that I think can bring this all together, because what I'm seeing out there repeatedly, first of all, Jordan Poole, got to give him love for finally breaking out of his opening season slump.
Yeah.
First 2 games were not great. His plus minus still struggled against the Kings. He was minus 18 when he was out there, but he did score 24 points. He did go 3 for 5 from beyond the arc. He did shoot 50% from the field. Did miss 2 free throws, which is really weird. He's now missed 3 for the year after winning the free throw title. But what I think the Warriors need, when you have a lineup out there that includes Jordan Poole, that includes James Wiseman, Moody, Kuminga, is Andre Iguodala. And, like, people were wondering, like, is he even going to play this year? And what kind of role will he take on this year? That's the role I think the Warriors could use him right now, is to be that 5th player out there to not only relieve some defensive pressure from the young players that are out there, but also help facilitate the offense so that they know where to go and they can get their timing down a little better. Even if that means Iguodala just playing 5-10 minutes a night. Now, with that said, he hasn't played yet. Do you have any information? So he supposedly had a press conference today, or he was part of the players and coaches they brought out. Do you have any idea what happened or what he said? Any info?
So, the Warriors have been pretty vague about when Andre Iguodala might return to the floor. I told you this on Friday. I love Steve Kerr's comments on Thursday or Friday, where he said that I'm sure Andre will announce on his podcast when he's going to actually play in a game.
Yeah.
Today, we found out that he's not making the trip to Phoenix. It's still undetermined if he's going to make the longer road trip to the East Coast that's following up later this week. So who knows?
Oh.
So at this point, it still seems to be pretty unclear. I kind of mentioned to you that I listened in on Steve Kerr's conversation and what he said during the media session today. However, Andre Iguodala and the players always come out like hours later.
Yeah.
So I didn't hear Andre's entire comments, but he's not going to Phoenix. He is going to Phoenix. Sorry, did I say he wasn't? He's going to Phoenix, but he's not playing.
Okay.
So that's the thing. Andre Iguodala is going and making the trip, but they made clear he's not going to play. So I think that goes to show just how important his presence is for this team, and just having him on the bench and trying to guide some of these young players that we're talking about in the second unit. But he's still not going to play, and I couldn't tell you when he's going to play. If I had to make a guess, who freaking knows? We knew that Andre wasn't going to play a lot of games this season. At least I knew, based on what we saw last season, that this was kind of expected. But it would be great to see him back out there. And I do think you make a good point about what he could bring to that second unit in regards to just some veteran leadership. And, you do have JaMychal Green and Dante DiVincenzo out there who have a little bit more experience than some of these young players, but they're still new to the Warriors system. They're still new to the organization. They still haven't played with some of these other guys very long. So, you can't look to them for that same kind of leadership that Andre Iguodala would bring to the floor. Not to mention, Andre Iguodala is one of the best defenders in the NBA, even in his latter years and in, the sunset of his career. I still think he looked excellent last year defensively when he was able to get on the floor. He has great hands, and it would be great. I think that he would really be able to help that second unit when he does play, but it's still just unclear when that will happen. How often will he be able to play this season as he tries to manage, as we always say, the litany of injuries that he appears to deal with, old man injuries, as some of the guys will joke, and even Steve Kerr will joke, soreness, all kinds of, just kind of mysterious things. But I don't know. I hope that he comes back soon, because I think you make a good point.
Thank you. I we'll see if he makes an impact. I want to play this soundbite from Steve Kerr from today's press conference after practice. Are you sure, by the way, that Iguodala actually did come out? Like you're 100% positive of that?
No, I'm not positive.
Okay. My hunch is because neither of us could find anything. I'm wondering if he just never did, but who knows? I can't confirm that. Well, anyways, here's Steve Kerr talking about one of the team's failings. It's only 3 games. There's absolutely zero reason for panic buttons to be pressed. I mean, heck, last year in the NBA Finals, they were down 2-1 to the Celtics. I still was not hitting a panic button, so don't expect that in the regular season from me. So here is Steve Kerr talking about one area of the game that the Warriors are really struggling with, and that is their transition defense.
Transition defense is the biggest issue right now. There's a total lack of focus in transition. We were really good last year, 5th in the league in transition defense points per possession. We're 22nd right now. Last night was abysmal. The end of the Laker game was abysmal. The Denver game, there were portions. So we're 3 for 3 so far on bad transition defense. So that's the number one focus right now.
Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad. And when you look at it really bigger picture, I think just that second unit is clearly not there yet. And, this is, hopefully these are just growing pains, but this is why there was an uproar when Gary Payton II was not re-signed, because Gary Payton II was just that good defensively. As Stephen Curry alluded to multiple times, he had a knack, or has a knack, for always being in the right place at the right time. I don't mean to go off on Gary Payton II now because he's long gone. But he's missed right now. And the good news is that they're going through these growing pains this early in the season. What do you think about Kuminga so far? I want to shift to Friday's game against the Nuggets, a game that the Warriors lost. Whatever ring night hangover that we expected on ring night itself, I think that kind of got pushed back a game. I was on with Larry Krueger's show Friday night, talking about this as well. And the ring night hangover, I sensed it much more in the first half of that Nuggets game. I don't think we saw it in opening night because there were a lot of eyes focused on Draymond and Jordan Poole and how those two are doing. By the way, people are finally not talking about that much. It's finally a dying subject.
Stop bringing it up. People are probably stop talking about it as you're talking about it. I'm just teasing you.
No. But in that Nuggets game, I felt it in the first half. The Warriors were down, I believe, 18 points at the half. I feel like they made a valiant effort to come back. They chipped at it, but they just couldn't quite overcome that halftime deficit. But Jonathan Kuminga so far has not had a great start to the season. And I do want to ask your opinion of this, Kylan, because he's a player that in year 2, expectations are up. I mean, the Warriors lost, again, Gary Payton II. They also lost Otto Porter Jr. And he's a player that I think they're going to be counting on, if not now, very soon. But through 3 games so far, look, his field goal percentage is okay. He's shooting 43%, but it's below 51% that he shot last year. His rebounding numbers are down from 3.3, which is not great to begin with. It's only 1.7 now. That's a part of his game I feel like he needs to strongly focus on. And his points per game, again, just 3 games so far, but last year he averaged 9.3. Through 3 games this season so far, his scoring clip is at 2.7 per game. Is anything Kuminga doing concerning you so far? And just your thoughts on watching him through the first 3 games of the season.
I mean, to me, it just looks like he's a player who has yet to figure it out. Like watching him, it just seems like it still hasn't clicked for him yet.
Yeah.
He still isn't where the Warriors want him to be developmentally. And it was clear to me after these last 2 games that there was a shift in the rotation where it seems like Moses Moody has climbed up the ladder maybe a little bit, and that Jonathan Kuminga has kind of become more of a fringe rotation player. He also didn't play much in these last 2 games. I mean, he played, I think, 7 minutes and 8 minutes in these last two games. And so as far as evaluating him, that's a very small amount of time. I just don't think he's looked great either. You mentioned some of the scoring stats. Like, to me, it just looks like he hasn't put it all together, which is tough because, like, I still think that we all know Kuminga, not Moody. Kuminga's potential is that he could be really, really great and he has all the physical tools. But, like, to me, it's like up here. It's like he still hasn't necessarily put it together mentally. At least that's what it looks like to me, as far as like knowing where to go. And, you know, defensively, offensively, setting screens, knowing where he's supposed to be. I don't know. I just feel like he still hasn't put it together. And he hasn't looked great these first couple games. I'm still hopeful he'll figure it out. He's still super young. But to me, it just looks like he has a longer way to go in his development than maybe some people hoped coming off of this offseason and his play in Summer League and additional experience. And I think people are hoping he'd be a little bit farther along.
Yeah, absolutely right. And then one player that I think really is impressing so far is James Wiseman, who through 3 games of this season is averaging 11 points per game. His rebounding numbers are at 6 per game, but he's been incredibly efficient. I think that's one thing that sticks out. He's shooting 72.2% from the field on the season. I want to play this quick soundbite on Wiseman after the Kings game, on how he feels he's performing so far this year, because while Kuminga, has some work to do, Wiseman has been impressing. Here's James. Oops, let me get this queued up. There you go.
What kind of got you going in that first half?
Just being patient and just playing within the system, not rushing the shot. But, like, if it's a shot that's open inside the paint, I just took it. So, yeah.
You've hit several floaters this year that kind of, 8 foot, 12 foot range. I mean, it's something that, you even had as a rookie, but how much have you worked kind of on that range?
I've been working on it a lot. Me and Deck have been putting in a lot of work in the gym, just working on that and also working on my hook shots, even though I didn't make it over Davion Mitchell, but I'm going to do better next time.
Don't take that hard. Davion Mitchell's an incredible defender. The coach we referred to is their big man coach. I'm not going to try to pronounce his name at this moment because I don't have it in front of me, but he's Nikola Jokic's former coach, and the Warriors are hoping he does some similar magic with James Wiseman. He's been Kevon Looney's coach. So there you go. Dante DiVincenzo, by the way, has a hamstring injury. He's going to be reevaluated in a week?
Yeah, right, he's going to be reevaluated in a week, so we won't see him in that time.
Okay. And some other news, the Golden State Warriors have assigned Patrick Baldwin Jr., who I don't believe we have seen yet in the NBA. He has yet to play his first minute. And Ryan Rollins, who, by the way, I'm still really hoping will be a guest of this show soon. They're both going to the G League affiliate of the Golden State Warriors, the Santa Cruz Warriors, who make their debut November 5th, so a week from Saturday. And again, it doesn't mean they're going to play for the team for that game, but given they got assigned there, that means they're in Santa Cruz right now. They're not making the trip to Phoenix. And I do wonder if that means the Warriors' two-way players are going to come with the team. I don't know. Anyway, any last thoughts? The Warriors play the Suns on Tuesday. Looking at their schedule, I think the Warriors are going to beat them. I think they have their number. And then they play Thursday at home against the Miami Heat. So, Kylan, when you rejoin me on Friday, what do you predict will be happening? You were correct. You said 3-1. When we saw you today, they are 3-1. No, right? Yes, 2-1. 2-1. Am I correct?
2-1, right? They're 2-1 this season.
And then, so what will the record be when we see you on Friday?
Stop making me make predictions. I don't like making predictions.
Yeah, look at
But I'll talk about the Suns game. I will say that I was surprised by their finish against the Clippers the other night. Even though Chris Paul shot terribly, he still did contribute in assists and rebounds. And I thought they looked better than I thought they were going to. I think it's going to be a tough game. I think it's going to be a close game on the road. I think it's clear the Warriors are going through some growing pains early in the season as well, as expected. So I think that does have to be factored in. I think the Warriors are going to edge it out, but I do think it's going to be a really close, hard-fought battle. I don't even know if I feel confident taking the Warriors over. I think they're going to win that game, though. And
I think so, too. And then they play the Heat on Thursday, and the Heat are just they're one of the hardest teams to prognosticate, I think, in the NBA. You never know who's going to show up. They did have their number last year. The Warriors swept them in the season series during the regular season. That's who they play Thursday at home. They're 1-2 in the year. If you don't have a prediction for that, Kylan, I understand.
Yeah, I don't have a hard prediction on that. What I will say is that I know Steve Kerr talked today about how great it's going to be for both the rookies to get some G League experiences. They're assigned to Santa Cruz. I think that's fantastic. Ty Jerome also was activated and is expected to play in Phoenix in place of Dante DiVincenzo. So This may be the Warriors and fans' first time getting to see what he has to offer in the NBA. I do think losing DiVincenzo is going to be a bit of a hit for the Warriors in that second unit that's already struggling. So we'll just have to see. And I hope that Jonathan Kuminga figures it out. I just was looking at a clip that I had been wanting to find to send to you where like there's been a couple clips that I've seen where just like total miscommunication, just being totally out of position defensively. And there's one I saw that really struck me where like him and Poole on an X out where they need to be switching on weak side defense to step out to a player in the perimeter, just like totally like got lost, ran into each other. It was just like a bad miscommunication. And I don't know why that just popped in my head, but we're just talking about Kuminga. And it's just like little things like that to me like have nothing to do with his physical abilities, but it's just like being able to read the game and know where you are and be locked in and like mentally know what's going on like defensively and offensively. So like I don't know, I'm just still really hopeful that he is going to put it together, and like it's so exciting to see what his potential would be, but I know like fans are just really anxious for him to start putting it together because they know that he could be such a great player. So I'm excited to see how the youngsters develop. I think there's still a lot of time for the second unit to figure it out. Andre Iguodala, I think, would be a great addition to get back in the mix. I do think losing DiVincenzo is going to be a bit of a hit, though, because I do like him. I like DiVincenzo's play so far. I think he's solid defensively. I do like him as a playmaker. When he does bring the ball up and able to facilitate in some of those rotations. So yeah, we'll have to see. I think the Suns game is going to be a fun game, and I think the Heat game is hard to predict. So anybody's guess is as good as mine.
There you go. And maybe the Suns game will be closer. I was just looking at their first three games. It might be close. They're 2-1 to start the year, and their one loss was a nail biter. We'll see. I still think the Warriors are just a vastly superior team, but it's early. There are growing pains. Do not bet on that, folks. I'll leave it there. Thank you, Kylan. I'll see you Friday. Any last words before we go? Anything else we haven't touched on? Oh, I do want to say, keep an eye out for that Jordan Poole, James Wiseman connection. Those two represent the future of Warriors basketball because they already look damn good, especially on pick and rolls, on lob plays. They have a chemistry. So keep an eye out on those two in that second unit because while we've been criticizing that second unit, that is a bright side. And the more chemistry they develop, Maron, is that going to be amazing? Anything else?
No, but you're also right about that. And they both actually have talked about that in several of their media availabilities, that they like those two specifically like work together in the off season. They got in the gym together to try to really build that connection, that chemistry. And they both are still like really focused on working that, like specifically Poole and Wiseman have talked about like really targeting and focusing on working together. I think that's really exciting. And I think that's smart on their part. I think they really tried to do that in the off season, and it's showing. It's showing right now, and that connection and chemistry is only continuing to grow. And so I like where you were going with that. A bright spot for sure. I hear dogs barking, and that usually means that's the cue. They're outside at least, so hopefully it's not too loud. But that's usually the cue that we got to sign off. We're done.
I call that incredible ambiance. So I love it. Thanks, Kylan. I'll see you Friday. Thanks, everyone.